Hi doll faces. If you are actually watching this, then it means that I have managed to finally upload a video of this book review. I have had nothing but false starts, corrupted files, audio syncing issues since I finished the book and decided to do a review. So it's third time lucky. If it doesn't work this time, I'm not putting it up. I'm just going to consider that this book review is cursed and that's the way it's going to have to stay. Okay, so my final attempt at this book review, it's What's in the Cards for You, Test the Tarot by McElroy. And it says on the front, 30 Experiments, Infinite Insight. I bought this book because I'm always looking for new and interesting ways of using the tarot and of focusing on its meaning in contemporary society, looking at different ways that we can experiment with it and expand our horizons with it. And I thought that this 30 experiment book would be fantastic and a good resource, and I was not disappointed. Even though that I feel from the very outset of the book it does cater largely for beginners in a sense. I mean, he does state that it is for proficient practitioners and also for people who have only just picked up a deck of cards or even maybe sceptical about tarot. He does mention that it's for everyone, but I do feel that it lends itself to beginners in the sense that it's quite witty, it's quite charming, it's disarming, it's very sort of inviting for someone that has never really owned a deck before, might be doubtful about what tarot can do for them, might even feel a little bit embarrassed or overwhelmed to have an interest in tarot, not really sure where they can go with it kind of thing. He does cater for the skeptic and he does cater for the beginner. But why I think it's great for a proficient tarot reader is that a lot of the experiments in here are actually very innovative and they are not things that I've seen or read elsewhere. He does have kind of a lot of new thoughts and a lot of new ideas on techniques with tarot, so I do still think it is good for the seasoned tarot reader's bookshelf, definitely. The book is set out like coursework with 30 experiments, one for each day. He does encourage you to do the activities, he has questions in there that you can answer. He has homework, he has these little bits at the end of each experiment called extra credit, which is kind of like optional homework. He also has, at the beginning of each experiment, a tarot fast fact for the day, which may pertain to a little bit of tarot history or might go into a little bit of information about tarot, its cultural associations, that kind of thing. So you can pick up a bit of information as well. Sometimes it's just an opinion piece, it's something that he thinks, something that he's kind of imparting to you. But I mean, he's a very interesting guy and he does take it down some quite interesting avenues. He does encourage you to write in the book. It has sort of a very coursework style look to it with like little graphs and dialogue boxes and places you can write the answers to your questions in. A few of the experiments also have a very before and after feel, so he might ask you to do something or focus on something in the morning and then come back to it in the afternoon and contrast and compare or see how things changed. A lot of the exercises are based around things like ESP, recognising how tarot has a relationship with synchronicity, testing the sixth sense and that kind of thing. There are some activities to do with dream work, dealing with your emotions, testing your mental reflexes, interpreting symbols to an extent. He does go down several different avenues, so it's quite interesting, and as I said, some of the experiments are not stuff I've seen elsewhere. One thing that I would say about McElroy as a tarot writer is that he's very much a proponent of tarot for self-development, and he's very much a proponent of using it as a contemporary tool for psychotherapy, for personal growth, I mean, I believe he's very big on the corporate training industry kind of scene, so he's one of those people that's giving tarot that makeover, that's bringing it into the next phase of its cultural life, if you like. He is one of those people that's trying to distance himself and distance tarot as a tool from the more esoteric fortune-telling side. So if you are somebody that's heavily into using tarot for spiritual concerns or for divination, McElroy might not be the right flavour for you. I'm not saying that he has any malicious intent towards people that use tarot that way, but he's very much got his own agenda, and that agenda pertains to self-development, coaching, life coaching, that kind of thing. So he's very pragmatic and straightforward with it. There's nothing spiritual or metaphysical in the book whatsoever. So that's the angle he's coming from. Mark McElroy's written a few books on tarot, and they're all very, very hands-on. They're all about using tarot to develop yourself and develop your mind, work out what's going on with you, work out how to get to the next phase in your life, how to achieve your ambitions, and so on. He also has designed a tarot deck called the Bright Ideas deck. And I'm not going to lie, I saw the tarot deck before I'd actually experienced any of his writing. I really, really didn't like it. It just wasn't my taste in any way. I really value the relationship that tarot has with symbolism and with, you know, the language of symbols and how we interpret them and how they can send us off on these very exploratory journeys into ourselves and our psyches and so on. So, you know, I have seen some tarot decks that are just absolutely stunning and marvellous and help you to really get down to the core of your being, and there are lots of tarot decks that work along the lines of mythological systems and all this kind of thing I love. So the Bright Ideas deck evidently was probably going to be a little bit arbitrary and basic for me. And the symbolism that he uses in it, I mean, first of all, the illustrations are basic. They look like illustrations from a child's storybook, and I'm not talking about, you know, like a really opulent fairy tale. I'm just talking about a bog standard, almost like a child's school workbook. Really uninspiring, not for me at all. The symbolism that he uses in the deck is, it just lacks subtlety completely. It's like being hit in the face with a brick. Just for an example, there's a card in his deck called the Shadow. And the illustration is basically a guy sitting in a very dark cave on a rock, and surrounding his feet there are loads of masks that have obviously been shed away from his face. He's looking into a handheld mirror and there's nothing there on his face, like all the masks have been removed and all you can see is just this black hole where his face should be. That to me lacks subtlety. It's just so obvious. It's almost asinine kind of thing. There's nowhere for you to go with that. There's nothing for you to explore. There's nothing for you to work out. It's just so in your face. But I can appreciate obviously that this is a deck that was not designed for people who are interested in deep systems of symbology, or in particularly using the tarot for spiritual enlightenment or heightened spiritual experience. Mark McElroy is a guy that's working on the basis that tarot can be used as a very pragmatic, very straightforward tool to enhance your life and to enhance, you know, your experiences in life. So I can appreciate that from the angle he was doing it from, it worked well for his purposes, but I thought it was a really ugly deck, so I was kind of snobby about Mark McElroy for a while, but I do think that this book is great. Just going back to what I was saying about his opinions about the tarot image and what he's actually trying to convey and what he's trying to very much disassociate himself from. He has a character in this book called Sister Doololly, and he doesn't really give any explanation per se of Sister Doololly's presence in the book, but you are supposed to assume that she is like this very stereotypical gypsy fortune teller, Romany headscarf, big gold earrings, very mechanistic, very fatalistic, you know, the kind of woman that if you get the death card you're going to die and it's all very doom and gloom. And Sister Doololly is used as somewhat of a comic device for Mark McElroy to kind of say, this is the kind of tarot experience we're trying to avoid. This is the kind of rubbish that can be left in the past. It's not contemporary, it's not what we're trying to do here, it's not of its day. So Sister Doololly is kind of a very tongue-in-cheek way of explaining to us the kind of tarot proponent that he is and the kind of tarot stuff that he considers to be hokum, nonsense, whatever you want to call it. But again, this statement is not made with any malice whatsoever. It's just kind of, it's just his way of doing it. And also a lot of people would say that his wit and his humour is quite school teachery, it's kind of flat. Sometimes he's trying to be funny when he could just go ahead and give us the information. But a lot of people would find it very charming and very disarming and would make the book more of a page turner for somebody who was not necessarily massively into tarot or passionate about tarot, but kind of found themselves with a deck and wanted to know if it could really do anything for their life. So I do think it's a great little book, but I do think you need to be aware of Mark McElroy's flavour as a tarot writer to understand whether or not you'd really be able to go through it as a course. And I will say for me, for my part, I didn't go through it as a course. I think that being as seasoned as I am at tarot, it would feel kind of weird for me to go through it as a 30-day course. That wasn't really my agenda when I bought the book. I was more interested in just reading through the experiments as and when I wanted to, and I have picked up some really great stuff from it. I do really appreciate the fact that he has really, he's put some major effort into writing down these experiments and exploring new ways of using the cards, so I definitely think it's a good resource for the proficient or seasoned reader. But as long as you're aware of the style he's going for, and as long as you're aware of a little background with regard to what kind of writer he is, then you will be well prepared for the kind of course that it is, and I definitely got something useful out of it. God, I really hope this uploads properly, or it's not going to upload at all, because I'm really done with describing that book now. 3 times it's been, 3 times, so 3rd time lucky, keep your fingers crossed for me.